Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the January book club meeting for 2019. I'm excited. Why? Three things. I have my hat, which has a puffball. Yes, absolutely. I have my glasses without lenses, because I'm gangster. And then we're what? We're talking about The Art of War. Excuse the cover. It's been through war, literally. But I am excited, ladies and gentlemen. So before we get the whole program started, what do I need you to do? A couple of things. I need you to share out this video with your friends, with your family, post it on your Facebook profile, share it out. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be good. And then secondly, I want you to start to think about any questions you may have about this book as we're talking, because I want this to be a conversation. I read the book. Whether you read the book or not doesn't mean you might not have, really interesting comments or thoughts to share on it. So as I'm talking, I want you to totally interrupt me, put stuff in the comments, likes, questions, all of that good stuff. Okay? And outside of that, just be ready for a fun conversation. So I hope you can do that. Can you do that? I think you can do it. So I'm psyched. So let's get started. Okay. So first and foremost, if you haven't read The Art of War, what is this about? I will give you the summary according to 4minutebooks.com. I love the world of the internet. That's amazing that that website actually even exists. According to them, The Art of War has been considered the definitive text on military strategy and warfare ever since being written in ancient China around 500 BC, inspiring businesses, athletes, and of course generals to beat their opponents and competition the right way until today. So that, when I saw that as a summary, I said, yeah, that's a really good, concise way to describe the book, because otherwise I would be a little bit stumbling on trying to figure out how would I describe The Art of War to you. But yes, it's really kind of a testimony of like what works, what doesn't work in the battlefield, actually of war, but also of what? Of the world. That is what's amazing. So let's get started. I want to, right off the bat, get into passages so that you can start to say, if you've never read this book and you're like, well, why should I read this book, Natasha? Let's go through some of the content, right? So page 1, so the book, the version I have is like, it's really beat up, like I said, but this is the edited with an introduction by Dallas Galvin and translated by Lionel Giles. There are different versions of The Art of War. This version, I didn't particularly like that the first part of the book, they have this whole intro on like ancient China history, which yes, is interesting and informative, but it had nothing to do with the book. And then the second half of the book, or more than second half of the book, they reiterate all of the quotes that you will read in The Art of War, and they translate it with like explanation. And I just felt like the explanation wasn't really providing extra context. So I didn't particularly love this version, but I would definitely recommend the book, and you'll see why. So page 1, first statement. Sun Tzu said, "The art of war is of vital importance to the state." So when you think about that, it's just a premise letting you know what is this applicable to. Next one, it is a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or to ruin. Hence, it is a subject of inquiry which can on no account be neglected. So I think what that is really speaking to is sometimes in life we are dealing with life and death matters, especially with war, but also what? Especially with people. Spending time with the wrong person can cost you your life. Absolutely. So life is serious. I know so many times they say, take it easy, relax, right? Like I'm Jamaican, so like I hear take it easy a lot by my family members, but so much of life is actually super duper serious, despite, the fun glasses you can wear. So just keep it in mind, right? Next quote, page 9. Yes, page 9, number 18. All warfare is based on deception. I really liked that statement because why? It shares to you the idea of how important PR and marketing really is. If all of war is deception, then what? It's based on whatever information and content that you're putting out to the enemy, whether that's the enemy on the battlefield or that's the enemy in life. So just think about just what is the information I have out there? What can people perceive of what I am doing or who I am? And how are you curating that conversation? So what is that? That's storytelling. And how much and what type of story you put out is in your control. So think about that. Next is page 12, number 5. And they have like, every point has different numbers. That's why I'm saying 5. I'm not like crazy. So, thus, though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been seen associated with long delays. Interesting. So how would I interpret that sentence? I would say that being clever is something that you act on now. It's not cleverness planned for the future, or I happen upon cleverness, right? I think it's a part of what you need to do. And I like that because I think it's just a kind of a reminder that like we have wits about us. We have our abilities. And if you don't, make sure that you have people in your camp, people in your team who are clever, who are able to think on their feet, because why? It can be a matter of life and death, and it could be a matter of business survival or thrival. Right? There's a difference between surviving and thriving. What do you want for your life? What do you want for your business? What do you want for your project that you're working on? So just think about that. Next is page 18, number 18. And I'm just saying this just in case you have this book in front of you so that you can follow along with the read. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. That's super duper important, guys, because that is talking to the idea that winning is more than just winning. It's a matter of understanding how you got to the win. What is the win, right? And similarly, as they say here, that like if you win, but you don't understand your enemy, you still lost. So I think that this is really, again, speaking to actual war principles, which hopefully wherever you may be watching and tuning in, you are not in war, but if you are, heed the advice. But for us who are really applying this for the battlefield of life, because we are all in a battle in life with our minds and with others, that ultimately we have to know ourselves. Every step of the way. This isn't optional. Life is short. And if you don't understand you and you're going out here and you're making decisions and your decisions have an effect on others and you're trying to grow something, you're trying to build something, it is super challenging if you don't know yourself, if you're not one with self before we move forward. So that's what I would take from that. Next is page 27 I'd like to hit to. And you see, if you haven't joined the Dressing Room Mate Book Club before, you'll see that I'm very efficient in how we go through things. Read it, attack it, move on. Read it, attack it. Why? Because I think that, A, time is of essence, but B, you want to really I want to make sure that you guys get the context you need. So if you haven't read the book, you could surely say, okay, well, from this conversation, I really do think I want to read it. So that's why I try to put in as much content as possible for you guys. So page 27, number 2. Therefore, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed upon him. That is super powerful. I'm going to read that again because I really like this one. Therefore, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be opposed on him. What does that mean? This is like life lesson number 1. You cannot let anyone else dictate how you feel, how you think, what you're doing. You can absolutely be an influencer. You can absolutely put your thoughts out there. And if someone takes and heeds your advice, phenomenal. Wonderful. But you cannot live life and try to win and succeed in your life if you are having the will of others opposed upon you. It becomes a battle between you and that person, and you may or may not win. But if you never allow it, if you understand that I am the captain of this ship and no one else can be, you will far be happier and more powerful and more control in your life than if you even tolerate the idea that someone else's will can be opposed upon yourself. So do you understand that? If not, put that in the comments, because that is woo! life-changing statement right there. Never tolerate someone else's will being imposed upon yours. It's not a good look, guys. Next, page 29, number 17. For should the enemy strengthen his van, he will weaken his rear. Should he strengthen his rear, he will weaken his van. Should he strengthen his left, he will weaken his right. Should he strengthen his right, he will weaken his left. If he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will everywhere be weak. Do you see how woo! That's such a crazy, I can reread it just because I know that's a lot. For should the enemy strengthen his van, he will weaken his rear. Should he strengthen his rear, he will weaken his van. Should he strengthen his left, he will weaken his right. Should he strengthen his right, he will weaken his left. If he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will everywhere be weak. So what is that saying? You cannot be everywhere at all times. It is not a possibility. And when you divert attention one way, what does that potentially mean? You are ignoring the other direction. If you go right, people could go left. If you go left, people go right, right? So really thinking about how you utilize your resources, what you're paying attention to, and when you are creating deficiencies and vulnerable spots for yourself, whether it's on the battlefield, on the actual war ground you may be on, or your life, right? And understand that this just isn't applied to you, but to your enemy, to the others, right? So you don't have to take the word enemy so literal. It could just be the other person, right? And so just understanding that psychology of how people are thinking, how they're using their resources, what they're doing, and the implication for you in how you're acting and reacting to these individuals. Super, super vital, guys and ladies and gentlemen. And then next, and we're moving around good with time. Next would be page 31, number 32. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. I'm going to repeat that one too, because that's a really good one. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. So what is that sentence saying? That is saying the idea is that and I really struggle with this, so this really resonated with me. Change is inevitable, and it's an actual plausible outcome that's going to happen every single day. Will you live the exact same day every single day? No, absolutely not. Things will always be off. It might be off by a minute. It might be off by the cereal brand. You might have to wear a different color. Something has always changed. Change is in the water, essentially, is how you can think of it. And just as the statement said, water has no contained shape. The other part is that the warfare has no constant conditions. If you are in a battlefield, right, today can be different from tomorrow, which can be different next Tuesday, which can be different next Saturday. That change is always happening. So if you can understand that tenement and that statement, essentially, then what? It forces you to have to act responsibly and responsively to that. If you understand that I will never have constant conditions, that things are always changing, like social media, like the news, like people, like love, like business, like politics, like government, everything has its own change cycle, which is every single day, just depends on how severe and the momentum changes per industry, per individual, per ... fill in the blank. If you understand that everything is changing, then why would you try to live in a constant? Why are you trying to plan within just the idea of not accepting change? That would make you defeated from the beginning, right? So I speak to this in the sense that this is challenging for me because growing up, I had a very consistent schedule. My parents left me alone. I was never babysat. I've been taking care of myself essentially since I was 6 years old and just kind of living my peace and living my truth. And then my life went upside down when I was 14 years old. My parents divorced. It was a whole situation, right? But ultimately, I needed to prepare for the fact that change was inevitable and change happens much earlier on in life because change is disruptive. Change is something that turns something on its head, but it doesn't always have to be negative, right? We could go one day living our lives and we could be viral the next day in a good way. We could go one day living our lives and then the next day you win the lotto. We could go one day your business is surviving. Tomorrow you made $1 million, right? Change doesn't always have to be on the negative narrative. That's, I think, a common narrative that we think of and we associate with change. We think of it in bad, but we need to learn and think about change as movement, right? And progress, whether that's good progress or negative progress. It is what it is. You'll see when it's happening, but ultimately we're never in a constant. So stop trying to make things a constant. Let's do that. There we go. And ultimately, I think that that's super helpful because for someone like myself who doesn't particularly, I had to learn that at a later lesson in life. It's something that I have to constantly remind myself. But again, if you have read this and if you are a parent, right, and you have the fortunate experience to be able to teach your children things that you're learning so that their growing up period is a lot less painful and a lot less challenging than it needs to be. Teach them, right? Change is happening every single day. It is not theory. It is reality. We're all living it. Whether the change is good, whether the change is bad, we have to accept the narrative so that we can prepare for it and not be so shocked when things go left, when things go right. But we're anticipating change, the movement. We are hoping and moving our mindset and our lives towards the positive, right? We don't want to live with the negative in mind because the negative is only going to invite more negative experiences, right? But will negative things happen? Of course, that's a part of the journey. You can't appreciate the positive if you don't get the negative. That's just, it's as my mother-in-law, Marsha of Sisters on Fire likes to say, it's not positive and negative. It's just contrast, right? Like dark and light. It's not good or bad. It's just different. So you wouldn't appreciate the light if you didn't have the dark and vice versa. So think about that. So the only things that I would say that I didn't love about the book, I mentioned it earlier, just in case you just tuned in now, is essentially just this version of the book that I have has like a whole elaborate breakdown of like what each quote means. I didn't necessarily either agree with their explanation and or find their context to be more helpful. And pretty much other than that, I really liked it. I thought the book itself it's a different read, right? It's definitely not a book that you're going to be like, ooh, I'm going to cuddle up and I'm going to read about romance. It's like a self-help, it's a strategy book, right? It's a book where if you happen to be in war, you probably should read this. If you are really struggling with certain things in your life, whether it's in your business, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in dealing with how to get started, right? Maybe you're in a depression, you're in a funk, right? Things like that. I think this is a good book to kind of kick you in the gear to make you think about, change your format as to how you approach things, how you approach people, how you're approaching the battlefield of life that we are all living, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, things that I did love, the force in attitude and the change of the attitude. I started to think about life as a battlefield and what is the enemy? Who is the enemy, right? As Katniss Everdeen of Hunger Games, right? Know who the true enemy is, Katniss. Do you know who the true enemy is in your life? Do you know the people helping you or not helping you? Do you understand how to divert resources or how, when people are doing it, what that means for you, right? This book helps you to start to change your mindset. So I really enjoyed that piece of it. Also, just an understanding. I think so many people really, and I have to schedule this actually as an event for us to talk about for Dressing Roommate. But ultimately, this victim attitude. Raise your hand if you struggle with the like, oh, things just happen to me, life just happens to me. Okay, I put my glasses up a little bit on that one. Tony Robbins said it best when he said, life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. No one is a victim. I don't care where you live. You could be in Ghana, you could be in Cuba, you could be in India, you could be in the UK, you could be in Australia, you could be in Chicago. I feel for you, it's cold out there right now. You could be anywhere in the world. You are never a victim. If you choose to see yourself as a victim, that is your choice. We can all drastically change our lives or minimally change our lives as much as we want to. But it begins with how you view yourself, how you view your life. And so if you're struggling with trying to understand that, I definitely recommend that you pick up the copy of this book. It's definitely on Dressing Room, the number 8. You can go and get it today. Order your book. Get your life in control. We all have things that we have to get under control in our life, and how we view ourselves is definitely something that needs to be talked about with ourselves and really debated as to how are you viewing yourself? Are you the victim, or are you the actor who is making good choices, making bad choices, making bad choices? What are you doing? Right? What are you doing? So there's that. That's what I definitely loved. And then also, I just liked how affirmative a lot of the statements were, really affirming the idea that you are in control of your life. You are in control of your life. I don't need that reminder typically, because I usually am saying that in one of the affirmations or things that I'm reading or I'm writing. But so many people I know and so many people I work with definitely could benefit from reading this. Probably reading it a couple of times to really put that into their mind. I am in control. I am in control of my life. I am in control of my thoughts. I am in control of my actions, right? This idea that like, I'm just stuck at this job. I'm just stuck in this relationships. Nope. Not today, bum bum. Not today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, not next Tuesday. Never. You are never stuck by actions of others. It's by yourself, unless you literally are held in hostage, right? Like, I do want to account for the fact that there are people in life, unfortunately, who are so disempowered, they're literally like in chains, and that's a whole other conversation to speak on. I actually would love to interview someone who's been through that kind of experience to have share their story and help share that insight with others. But generally speaking, right? Generally speaking, we are in control of our lives. If we're in bondages, either mental or whatever, we have to find a way to break out of these bondages. And we've got to reverse the negative crap that we say and do so that we can make better choices, which ultimately helps us win the battlefield, win the war, right? So that's what I love. We are nearly at that time. So I would love, again, any questions, any thoughts, feel free. Put them in here. I'm happy to address them. Next, I will talk about what are we doing for February. So for the February Dressing Room 8 book club, we're going to be reading a book that will help get our minds together about money. So it's the Total Money Makeover Classic Edition, A Proven Plan for Financial Fitness. And I believe that is going to be amazing. If you want to learn more about it, you go to dressingroom8.com and then go to my recommendations. On my recommendations, I have put, I believe I've put all the books that we're going to be reading this year already up there so that you can start to peruse and you can check it out. And you're like, well, what about this? Do I really, you can get the information, right? I want to make sure that I'm giving people the information that they need. But yeah, this book by Dave Ramsey, The Total Money Makeover, I think it's going to be a good book for us to talk about. And really, it's the new year, right? And what is this perfect in time for? People are starting to do taxes or thinking about money. Money is on the mind if it's not already on the mind. What does a money makeover, a total money makeover mean to you? What are things with money? How do you want to change your relationship with money? And also, I will add a really good book that I recently read, You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. So that's another really good read on that as well. And with that, I think we are, at that time, guys. I mean, I don't see any questions or comments right now, but if they happen to kind of pop into your head at a later date, always feel free to come back in here and put them in the comments. I can see when I get new comments and I can come back in here. But just last minute words of wisdom from The Art of War is that, like, life can be conquered, right? Life is not insurmountable. Life is filled with people. It's filled with things created by people, right? That we are all connected and that there is strategy involved, even on things that you don't think strategy is involved in. and that you need to learn to develop your own sense of strategy as to how you deal with negative people. How do you deal with condescending people? How do you deal with positive people? How do you deal with uncomfortability? How do you deal with the nerves, with the depression, right? The strategy involved for all of it and in between. That is one thing that I took away from the book. Another thing that I took away is the importance of understanding those around you and building your team, and how big of a team, how big of a support matters, and what are they giving to you and what are you giving to them. Every relationship has a cost, whether it's emotional, mental, spiritual. Everything has an exchange, right? So what are we doing there? And then also, what is the end goal, right? When you're in war, the end goal is to typically win. But for you, in your life, have you thought about what your end goal is? What do you want out of this life that you're living? When we wake up, are you just like, oh, it's just another day. Okay, I'm going to have some Cheerios. Tomorrow I'm having pizza. Like, is it just kind of this blah, non-conscious existence of just like waking up, doing the same things or similar things, going to bed, ... Or are you actively on a mission to complete something? Do you want to start a school? Do you want to send your kids to college? Do you want to buy that Ferrari? Do you want to retire at 62? Like, what is the end goal for you? What are you working to achieve in your life every single day? And everyone's goal is different, and you don't have to worry about if my goal is enough, if my goals par up to what they should be. Never the question, right? But the question ultimately is, what am I working towards? What am I trying to achieve here with my life? And if that's something you've never asked yourself, I really dare you to challenge yourself to do that now. And to answer the question before we get into February and every month thereafter. What am I working towards? And I personally believe The Art of War will really help you. So again, please go to dressingroom8.com to pick up your copy of the book and have a good read if you haven't read it. And if you have read it and you have a copy in your home or wherever you may be in life, make sure that you reread it. If you need a reminder, right? That's the beauty of books, that you always have the opportunity to go back and reabsorb the information. There's some people who reread books every single year because they just want that reminder. So read like your life counted on it. I said that in another live. I absolutely mean it. Read like your life counted on it, because it's transformative. It will really help you stay grounded, stay focused, and complete the mission, because we all have a purpose. And if you haven't figured out what your purpose is, let's do it together. That's what I do as a coach, as a consultant. And I'm really excited for everyone who tuned in tonight and today, and whatever time it is, wherever you are. But please come back for the February meeting. All details will be on at dressingroom8.com. I'll put it in the comments at the end of this. And with that, ta-da! I will see you later. Thanks for stopping by. All right, guys. Bye.